In this episode of Soundwall, we interview Richard Hoover, the founder and head luthier of Santa Cruz Guitar Company. We'll discuss Richard's beginnings as a luthier, his philosophy on how to build the best-sounding acoustic guitar, and of course, the 50th anniversary of Santa Cruz Guitar Company. Enjoy.
You're listening to Soundwall with Adam Schumann, presented by Danville Music, your local music store.
All right, everybody, welcome to Soundwall, and today's guest is going to be Richard Hoover, founder and president of Santa Cruz Guitars. This year, they're celebrating their 50th anniversary, which that's a huge deal. I've been running the store for almost 5 years, and I'm already feeling like a little bit overwhelmed. So you beat me by 10 already, and thank you so much for spending the time to come out here.
Absolutely. I'm delighted to be with you, as always.
Yeah, so the first question we like to ask is, tell me about the first time you fell in love with music.
I'm going to use this one. Let's go back to probably 1956. And the telephone was in the hallway on a piece of furniture by itself. And the record player was likewise. It was between the living room and the kitchen on a little stand. And it was a Philco, charcoal and white with black speckles and sparkles in the cabinet, right? And you opened it up, and it would take LPs, but it also had a little spindle for 45s to put on there. And you put that little crazy plastic thing in there to adapt it. And my mother was playing the Ventures, and I was listening to, it wouldn't have been Noki Edwards at the time. I can't remember who the guitar player was that preceded him. But Walk Don't Run. And I went, I want to do that. And I was old enough to understand and appreciate. So, you know, that was where I was inspired both to want to play guitar and appreciate music and have a connection. But my first memory in falling in love was sitting in my mother's lap when she played piano. Mm. You know, that was beautiful. And she played old standards at the time, but she also played boogie woogie. You know, so
you could get the left hand going, and
I'd go to sleep in her lap when she was playing. It was magic, and I had some visual memories of that. Nice connection, huh?
Oh, it's very nice. Very nice.
Got mom in there.
Yeah. So your mom was playing piano. Did you start on piano, or did you?
No. This is an interesting developmental story. Everybody's so far gone, I could probably mention names. Fern Bliss was the wife of the Mike Bliss that owned the music store in town that sold guitars, records, band instruments, TVs and radios, appliances. And I'm going to say for my 8th birthday, I got piano lessons. Before that, I had goofed around on the piano, but I wasn't pushed to do anything with it. I was really central in our house. So at 8, I got piano lessons. For my 9th birthday, I got to quit. She was really well respected as a pianist and a teacher. She taught some people that went on to professional careers, but she was really severe, and I kind of rebelled against the discipline. Mm-hmm. And as I recall, she had a little conductor's baton, it's like a little hardwood egg and a little plastic noodle that came out of it, conductor with, and she'd rap you on the knuckles,
It's like
when
the Catholic
when you
school
made,
form
when you
of
made a mistake.
music.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I didn't look forward to it at all, and I was really glad to get out of it. And I'm surprised it didn't undo me for my desire to play music.
Yeah, that could be traumatic.
Yeah, I was never forced at home. Now, Fern Bliss, God rest her soul, like I said, was well respected, remarkable. It didn't work for me, so I'm not blaming her at all. I've got my own learning challenges, and it wasn't a compatible way to try to learn. To anticipate a further question, the guitar was something, like I said, whoever was playing with Adventures at the time, it really moved me, and I loved everything about the guitar, the sound, whatever. And I knew I wanted to play, but there was no avenue for it. School had a band program, but no guitar at all. And there was one guy in town that taught, Casper Garcia, and Fred Rader, and they both came from old big band stuff, and their thing was first you learn the fundamental scales and chord shapes and things like that, and they came from the old arch top comping. Every note was a different chord, and they were really complex. And I did a couple lessons, and I went, this is just not going to work, for me.
Yeah, the jazz chords starting off especially are not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. What we know today about how people learn and how they learn differently. Sometimes you would go, that's not a disability. In fact, that can be very advantageous the way you perceive things. But you've got to be aware of it and present information, or let people do, to be able to get that. So again, no excuses. I blame nobody but myself, but I just couldn't learn that way. What it took is really wanting to learn to play guitar to impress a girl later on.
It helps. We call it upping our stock value when we're on tour.
That's right. Oh, that was a great motivation.
Well, were you tinkering around with things that were not musical at the time? Were you taking apart watches or clocks?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Let me give you a little background here. Is that my mother was a school teacher. She came from Nebraska, where she was a school marm, and she taught in a one-room school, 5 to 18-year-olds, right?
Oh, wow.
Oh, man, she's tough. And she was really smart, a voracious reader, and she could, any published poetry, you could say the first few words and she'd tell you who wrote it, and et cetera. So as she retired from teaching, she became a rock star reference librarian. Before the personal computer, you called my mom. You didn't ask Google, you asked my mom. And she would get she would lead you to the publications or the books or whatever on the subject. My father was a commercial artist. He was a window trimmer when I was really young. He did, the little vignettes on Main Street, the drugstore, the stationery store would have the Easter Bunny or Dancing Santa and display and stuff. He worked in plastic, wood, metal, everything to do those kind of displays. Later on, pre-franchise, if you were going to do a stationery store, a drugstore, a liquor store, you did it yourself. You hired somebody to do the shelving, to do the graphics. It didn't come as a package like today in a franchise. So that's what my father did. he mostly made those himself, shelving, displays. A drugstore, he'd make a foam, a mortar and pestle, and the RX and those kind of things. So I was really exposed to that handcraft and a lot of variety. And of course, I wasn't the least bit interested because it was my dad. But I got to get the old appliances to take apart. We made our toys, and again, there was no. I think back on it, and there was no expectation or sense of it was a chore. It was just a fun thing to do. Also, after school, I alternately was with my mom at the library and sat on the floor and read, or with my father at it was called the National Planing Mill, and they milled wood that came out of the Sierras, but they also made cabinets and things like that. And that's where his shop was, or even though he had a shop at home, that's where he did the heavier stuff. So I sat there in the sawdust and, watched that unfold. So with that background, when I got my first guitar to impress the girl, and I was playing one day, sitting there playing, waiting for her to come home, and it's really an answer to a prayer about what I was going to do. I thought, wow, somebody makes these. If I could make a guitar, I could do everything I liked at one time.
Yeah.
The music, the playing, the sound, and the whole idea. So I'm going to get to your answer here, which is a long preface. Sorry. I got to figure out how to get started, and I had no fear of taking things apart because I'd done that since I could remember. And you put it back together the way you took it apart, right? And I figured that's what I'll do. And it was an old Harmony. I think it was called an H150 maybe. It's kind of an OM shape, and it was all mahogany. I bought it with paper route money, and it cost $47.50. And there was a brown one and a blonde one. I liked the brown one. It was a mahogany top. So I took that guitar apart to figure it out. And back to my mom, the rock star reference librarian, she said, it would be a good idea to let's get some reference books and articles and show you how to put it back together. And there weren't any. There was nothing in print on guitar. There was some. There was a little bit on classical, but there was a ton of stuff on the violin. A treatise on speculation, diaries, know how to, because the violin guilds kept secrets to the death. But from that, I was able to get a good handle on a good start. So I really credit my father and mother and Pop Lloyd.
Who's Pop Lloyd?
Pop Lloyd. Pop Lloyd had come to California as an infant in a Conestoga wagon. He was that old, and he taught me trailcraft and a way of thinking when I made stuff. So that's my influences, and there's the answer to your question. How did I first get into guitar? I think that was your question.
Yeah, when you fell in love with music and playing guitar.
Yeah.
But yeah, the library is an interesting thing. When I was younger, my mom would drop me off at school, and the library would be open, and I would just go through. I'd find encyclopedia and start with A and work my way down. It was an interesting way to just kind of, I've never thought about this topic, and going through there.
That's beautiful.
So being surrounded by that sort of information, I'm sure not only music instruments, but other things you might be interested in. Just
That's
to pass
beautiful.
the time, right?
Yeah. I learned the Egyptian alphabet thinking I would be able to write and speak Egyptian because I was really into Egyptology and stuff. And we had to wash our hands before we took the encyclopedia out to look at it. That's wonderful.
Excellent.
Wonderful story.
Well, I remember you talking to me about Stradivarius violins,
Yeah.
and you being a student of those, and how you implement some of the bracing system. And please correct me if I'm quoting you.
Okay.
if I'm not giving you the
Unless
proper
you get
due.
it better than I did, I'll.
Well, I believe you said something to the effect of, when you look at the bracing system underneath the Stradivarius violin, it looks like there's no rhyme or reason to any of the lengths of the bracing. A lot of times they're asymmetrical, and you would think that there'd be no rhyme or reason. And you connected that to when I went on my first Santa Cruz Guitar Factory tour, and you talk about just hitting the different quadrants at the top and then adjusting the bracing accordingly. So you believe that out in Cremona they had that figured out?
Well, let's we all stand on the shoulders of giants, as I already said, and the lineage of the school of Amate, where Guarneri, Stradivari, those guys came from, would have some kind of direct link back to the barefoot guy that found a deer jawbone and that whatever that stringy part of the deer is, you know, right? And made a plucked instrument, and the evolution, going forward past that. So by the time we got to the 1700s, they were pretty sophisticated in what they did, and everything was purposeful. Unlike us today trying to build a custom guitar differently depending on what the player's style is and preferences are, the violin had a goal in its sound and a place in the ensemble, let's say. So yeah, they knew what they were doing. And they had a system, and they were unfortunately bound by strict tradition and the edicts of the guild, right? And it was serious stuff. You could get shunned and drummed out of town.
Or excommunicated?
Yeah, that's right. That's Martin's story.
Also cabinet builder.
Yeah, that's right. Making boxes to ship violins. So, and you said correction. No, you got it, but let me put it in terms that people can relate to. We're 50 years old this year, and we wouldn't have lasted 5 years if we weren't doing something considerably different than the brand name makers. It's seriously different. Otherwise, they could have done it cheaper, faster, a bigger bullhorn, every advantage in it. And what that is what I learned thanks to my mom about the violin building that I thought I could translate to guitar making was that we were building the instrument for the most for repeatability. That's the buzzword in science for success. You can do it over again, right? And what that is to make an instrument that is got the qualities of sound that everybody appreciates and can really move you. And they come from harmonicity. On a piano, when you pluck a note, you're creating a wavelength. You pluck another note, if that's complementary, they work together to sustain and develop rich, full, colorful overtones. So 5 notes in harmony can move you to propose to the person next to you or go out in the street and march for a cause. Really can. 5 notes at random, picked at random, it's like throw rocks at the piano. Unlikely they would be in harmony. They could be everything from totally discordant where the wavelengths cancel each other out and you get a noise, but it dies quickly with no overtones, or anything in between.
Well, what's interesting about, I'd say one of the major differences would be that by and large, the violin is monophonic and the guitar is polyphonic. So not only do you have to get one string harmonious, you got to find the average of, how are you going to make all of them
I like that.
up and down the neck? Like that's got to be
I like that.
another dimension that's difficult to tackle.
Well, I left everybody in the air there. I didn't tie these things together. What I learned from the violin tradition is that the true secret of Stradivari, if you will, was instead of making an instrument by repeating dimensions, which both science and guitar makers tried to do and do forever, if you make it exactly the same size, should get the same result. But wood is so varying in its density that if you cut 10 pieces out of the same board, the same size, they would ring at random frequencies. It'll be coincidence if they were complementary. So the violin was assembled with precise frequencies. The components had a frequency, and it was put together in harmony. And that gave it the sustain, which is ironic in a bowed instrument, sustain. But also the complexity, the depth, the sonority, the rich, full, colorful sound that you want. So I thought that's what you did with a guitar. And that's how I started building. Didn't take long before I realized that, nope, guitar sounds just fine. You really can't make a bad sounding guitar unless you crack it, right? You can't make an exceptional guitar except by chance or intent. And so when we go to certainly the mass producers, the commercial brands, they're like throwing rocks at a piano. They sound okay, but that one that everybody gravitates to at the festival, you got to hear this guitar, that's the one that just happened to have the most components in tune with themselves by chance, right? Now, I'm not dissing anybody. Martin actually had some really good stuff going on in the older days. You know, they carried the European tradition. And they did understand a lot of that. That's totally impractical in production. You know, you want to hit a reasonable price target. You can't do that stuff. You sell it through marketing.
Right.
Celebrity association, lifestyle choice, which is the big trend now. You know, play this guitar, feel good, get the girl, the sun comes out, life's grand.
Right.
You know, that's what you want. So anyway, that's what we do differently. And the difference between that and the violin tradition is we're not bound by tradition. So we can adapt. Let me do this. There's two parts of sound I'm going to talk about. One is personal choices, no right or wrong. That's really well represented by your sound system, your stereo. You have knobs and sliders that allow you to make it right for what your taste is and what you're listening to. If there was a right or wrong, you wouldn't get knobs and sliders. You'd get a box of presets. So those are the personal choices: volume, tone, EQ, etc. Now we can control those in the build of a guitar by choices of wood, how we shape the braces, and on and on and on, and get either what a player wants or what we know they want based on the genre that they're playing. Bluegrass players want a more predominant bass in the EQ. Fingerstyle jazz or classical player would hate that. They'd want a nice even EQ. They'll decide when to accentuate a note. And then there, on the other part of sound, is the stuff that everyone appreciates, not on an intellectual level, again, on the dinosaur brain level, that just moves you. And that is the rich, full, long-lasting, everything at once. The stuff that makes you feel good, right? It's not conceptual. It's really a physical thing. And that's achieved by either throwing enough rocks at a piano that you get a chord occasionally, and out of 100 guitars, you get a couple that people are going to gravitate to at the festival. The rest will be appreciated, but some of them are going to just be spectacular, right? So we do the former. We build largely custom guitars, and we're going to give the player what they want in the personal choices, but we're going to assure everybody gets that rich, full, spectacular sound.
Okay, I have a two-part question piggybacking on that, what you just said. The first question would be, do you feel like guitar builders in the early 1900s were working with a better supply of wood, a more superior supply of wood, or even back to 1700s, a more superior supply of wood? And if so, do you believe that your job is more difficult in tuning it up? Like, do you believe you have do you have to do less work on your end if you just get a beautiful supply of wood, or does it differ from batch to batch?
Man, my brain races here with a lot of stuff. Well, there was more of when we started our business in 1976, there was half as many people on the planet. Is that sobering fact?
That's
yeah,
wild.
That's incredible. When I was in like around second grade, it was half of that. There's a lot of us, and we're doing it every day. So it's not like more wood is made back then than it is today, but the demand was much less. But also the distribution was a lot less sophisticated. So I think that us as California guitar makers have access to more exquisite quality stuff than a guy in Cremona might have had in the 1700s. Now, I qualify that. Cremona was the center of instrument making. It had a long, long history, and so it would have had a distribution network and a supply network. But you can see what I'm saying. It is like the good wood has always been there. It's how can you access it, right? So for us, as you know, we use, I use a blanket term, we only use responsibly harvested wood. That's to explain in a simple sentence to people that were paying attention to the environment. The selfish part behind that is old wood sounds better. And these guys knew that. The violin builders in the 1700s.
Oh, okay, let me interrupt you there, just for people who are just getting into music. Why does old wood sound better?
There's beautiful, fun folklore that's nonsensical, but they're great stories. Here's the simple thing here, without going into acoustic physics terms. Is that the living tree circulates the nutrition in the tree sap, and it flows down to the tiniest capillaries like in a human being. When the life is arrested, that flow stops, and the material's no longer vital and part of a living organism. And what was the low viscosity that allowed it to flow through the tree begins to harden. And it's not crystallization, as sexy as that sounds. It's polymerization, like glue drying, right? So the longer the wood is from the living tree, the more the resins polymerize, and the harder they get, and the more resonant they are. So it's really simple. When, let's say, ABC, a guitar production company that makes 1,000 guitars a day, purchases wood that's cut from a tree and processed, they could build in 6 weeks, and it would be stable, but it's still got sticky stuff in it. And it would take a long time, if ever, for that to truly become its full potential. So most guitars that are made today, even in some boutique levels, will get better sounding over time as that material polymerizes. We cheat.
Yeah.
We buy old wood.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
Cool.
we both reclamation. It could be a dead standing tree. It could be parts of a building, whatever. But we use old wood, so we get a really great head start in that resonance of the wood. So that's a really big factor in why old wood is more resonant and why old guitars sound better than new ones. But that's only a third of the story. The second one is when you make a guitar, there's the potential to create a lot of tension. And the faster, the more efficient you're trying to make it, the more tension you'll build into it. So think of bending sides, out of their natural position. There's going to be a lot of memory. It wants to go back to that shape. So the faster you're going, the more likely you're going to have sides that aren't really set in that shape. They want to spring back, but they can go into a mold, still warm, maybe even still damp, and the guitar can be assembled. And you can really visualize the tension in there. Now, that's going to take a long time, if ever, to relax enough for the guitar to be fully resonant, and probably at the cost of the angle of the neck and things like that. But all aspects of the guitar, the more it's forced together, the more tension, the more restriction on resonance. So with the the violin tradition and with the tradition that we follow, we're eliminating as much tension or avoiding creating as much tension as possible. And it's kind of anti-efficiency, right? It takes more time to do that. But those two things, using the old wood with polymerized resins and putting less tension in it, gives us an older sounding guitar to start with. Now, the third one is the most popular and most often talked about. I call it de-damping because it's a translation of the French violin maker's trade. If you ring a bell and you put your finger on it, that dampens or damps the sound. If you take your finger off, you've de-dampened it, right? So in the violin tradition, let's say you had an apprentice, somebody's kid that's an indentured servant, right? and if they went to school, after school, they sit on a stool and they flex the top at a prescribed area. And the analogy I was given by Roger Siminoff is that imagine you're watching a movie and you're eating ice cream or a popsicle, and you get done and you just start twisting, bending the stick, the little wooden stick. And when the movie's over, the stick's a lot more flexible. You didn't break any fibers, but it became more flexible and therefore more resonant once it dried out. Mm-hmm. The apprentice flexing that top in the right places would make the violin more responsive right away. There's some credence to the idea if you put it in front of speakers while you're at work, it would do this process of de-damping. If you hooked a little device to it that just made it hum. But the physics behind that is only if it excites the guitar at the natural frequency of the airspace or the top itself. When that's excited, it will do some de-dampening effect, and it'll make the guitar more responsive. There's a lot of factors depend on how much. So for what we do, building with old wood, doing a relaxed assembly, we've covered the large part of why older guitars sound better in our new build, and we leave the de-dampening to the player themselves to do that. Now, there's commercial stuff out there to do that, and I thought of that years ago. And this inspiration came from Siminoff again. He took, back when we had Radio Shack, you could buy a little motor that had a weight off center, so instead of spinning, humming like a sewing machine, it would go wonk, 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 wonk. And you hook that up to a toy train transformer, which is like a frequency generator. And you can turn it, let's say we cable tie that to the strings of a mandolin or a guitar, and you turn that frequency until the instrument just howls. I mean, really frighteningly howls. And that's when it's matching the airspace and or the frequency of the top. And that's going to do something. That'll loosen up the instrument, make it more responsive. And, 48, 72 hours out, you probably will notice a difference. You also notice a brace come loose, or expose some other weakness. And that's why I didn't want to go into it commercially, because of the liability of the things you don't know. But that's science-backed explanations for why a guitar sounds older. Sounds better as it ages, generally.
Right.
With that.
And then it's kind of you're accelerating what an old guitar that's been played for decades does. It's just the vibrations that move the...
Two of those three will happen whether it's sunk in the ocean, in outer space, or on a shelf, or in an instrument being played. It doesn't take the vibration to polymerize the resins or relax the assembly, right? The de-damping aspect of it does. It would be playing or exciting the instrument at its natural frequency.
Gotcha. So SpaceX could be coming after you if they send their wood to outer space and bring it back home.
Oh man, I've thought a lot about this stuff, and it's not Luthier business; it's science. And again, science, repeatability, strict control, and all that. And I'm just not cut out for that. I want to build guitars.
Well, and what's difficult about that is applying science to metallurgy is a very different animal than applying science to something that used to have or still does have a DNA that was near a creek or got more sun than the other one,
That's fun.
In the same tree. The same tree, like you said, in different sections will have different sounds and different mineral content, right?
It's fascinating. Now, you could approach this as a scientist and do the calculations to arrive at a conclusion to make a better guitar. But, that's a lot of work.
It seems largely like reverse engineering. Like, I made that work, but how did I do that? And then you find out why after you've done it, right?
Yeah, the Luthier way. Oops, too much. Oops, too little. Oh, now that's right. I'll do it again next time.
Yep.
I get that repeatability. So I'm just as strongly I feel about responsible harvest. I feel about information. We don't keep secrets. We're open source. And before I pass, I wanted to capture what I learned from the violin tradition and 55 years of experience in controlling the sound of an instrument, and put it into a scientific vocabulary that could be understood, and develop the mechanisms that could measure that. And we're there. We've done that. It's not Luthier stuff, and you know this story, and the scope's too big for this conversation. But we worked in partnership with the Naval Postgraduate School at Acoustic Physics in Monterey and Stanford University's acoustic program, because everybody loves guitars, and it's not a commercial pursuit. It's something for everybody, and it's able to take a piece of wood and determine before you build with it what its potential is, right? Not to find the best piece of wood, because that's fallacious. As long as the wood falls into the properties of a good kind of wood for conducting sound, there's not good and bad, there's different just as there are different playing styles that go along. So we're determining what the potential properties, not qualities, properties are on this piece of wood to match it with the player, right? So the people that, the companies that are out there doing science to determine the best piece of wood for the guitar, that's their opinion. That's the best piece of wood. There's one company that's done that, and they promote a more flexible top, and flexibility promotes the bass. And a bassier guitar appeals to a majority of people, and it's kind of like ketchup on food. It's pretty
Right.
dramatic, but it's ketchup.
Yeah.
You know.
So if you're putting in a library, you have the classical musicians, and then you have the hit like Neanderthals musicians.
Yeah, bass it has its place. It's a nice thing. But you've seen that. There's people, they pick a guitar up in a store and they play the E string. Boom.
Yep.
You know, oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. So I'm sorry, I strayed.
Yeah, no. But it is, that's got to be tough because you can't. And well, first of all, you got some of the best and the brightest when you're at
That's right.
Stanford and this area is
Smarter than me.
Well, it's got to be tough because you can't do a DNA test on the wood.
I'm sorry?
You can't really do a DNA test to get that result because the same DNA in that tree will be different in different sections. So so
And
they're
wood-
looking at mass and moisture and I guess sap content. Are those some of the metrics they use?
You know, and again, that's going to change the polymerization and so forth. So I could choose a career in science, scientific inquiry, but that's not who I am or what I have to offer to make the world a better place. You know, somebody else was going to do the math for me to pull that off. What again? As a guitar builder with the goal of controlling the sound, making the best guitar for that one player, is we have enough information historically to follow to get the results. I don't have to do the calculations all the way from the beginning to arrive at that conclusion. You know, you do this recipe and there we got it. No, you just do it till it sounds right, and that recipe exists. But you didn't have to go through that whole ordeal to get there. But to be able to communicate with other people, you need that data. And that's what we're doing with it, the scientific vocabulary and the mechanism to measure it.
It's got to be exciting to be part of something.
Oh, it's thrilling.
Like that sort of research,
And there's
right?
just not enough time. Mark Rao, that we started working with, because it came for the guitars, you know, great universal unit of exchange. And he's a graduate student. And years later, now he's a professor at MIT. So we don't get as much of his time as we would before. But that was just, it was heady to be able to make that progress and not get stuck on the enemy of science is opinion and pride, right? And awful lot of that out there. Okay, I'm going to calm down. What's the next question?
Actually, I think now would be a good time to do a coffee break, kind of sit down, and maybe we can start talking about building in your dad's garage.
Great.
Presumably using his tools and making the jump from there to starting your own company. What do you think?
Great. I love that story. Plus, it allows me to give credit where due.
Cool.
Okay.
We will be back.
Musicians, we are Danville Music, your local source for the best selection of high-quality musical instruments and accessories. Open 7 days a week right here at Danville Music, danvillemusic.com, your local music store.
And we are back with Richard Hoover, and we talked about a lot of the build ideas and the concepts that you learned, and I guess we're gonna take it from where the rubber meets the road when you start from tinkering in a garage to going to a full-scale production, and that's a huge jump. So tell me how that came about.
That is, I don't remember a time where I would have gone, this is what I want to do for a living, or this is my career path. It was I was motivated by, I said, the realization I could do everything I liked at once. I could make stuff, I could experiment. And most importantly, what the guitar did for me is allowed me to express values, feelings, concepts that I don't think I could have done otherwise, both through the music and what that evoked emotionally in me and others, and the inspiration to put lyrics to songs and tell stories. It was a really volatile time politically, and a lot of that message was coming across in popular music. Today's a wild time indeed, but that was, we had a close call in the later 60s. So the idea of being able to make that tool for others, to allow them to do the same thing, it just felt like the right thing to do, a way to make the world a better place. And I had two really important mentors. I mentioned Pop Lloyd that taught me how to stay alive in the woods, and really a second father for me. But Jim Patterson and Bruce McGuire were both local men that were guitar builders that I found out just through the network. This is before videos or internet. Bruce was a loan officer at in the trade they called them mouse houses, where you go and you take your wedding ring or your pink slip to your car and get a loan, quotation marks. My guitar was stolen, and I got a loan to replace the guitar, and I met Bruce McGuire, who was a manager of the finance company, and I bought my Epiphone Texan, 64 probably, from Union Grove Music here in town, and they said they didn't finance, but I could go down the street and apply for a loan with beneficial finance. And Bruce, in part of the application, asked me what the loan was for. And I told him I was a professional musician. My guitar is so I needed to replace it. He goes, "Oh, I make guitars." And I gave you the preamble here about how I wanted to make guitars. I took my guitar apart, but in trying to progress past that, it was pretty slow going. And when Bruce said, "Oh, well, I make guitars," and he showed me a newspaper clipping, a local story about him, and I went, "Great, what night of the week is best for me to come over?" And learn. And that's truly how it started. He was a classical builder, a student of Art Overholser, who wrote a definitive book on classical making. And they both taught guitar making at Chico. I think Chico was a community college at the time. And he said, "Okay, come over on Wednesday night and we'll get started." As a classical maker, of course, there's a lot of things that are not in common with the steel string. So we hit some dead ends. But I'd also heard about James Patterson, who'd written a book on mother pearl inlay. And I called him and he said, "Sure, come on over." So between those two, I built my first guitar and learned the basics. And I'm extremely grateful to both of them, both exceptional men. When I ask each of them individually what I can do in return for them, can I build a fence, paint your barn, whatever. Both of them said no, and they said really close to the same thing, which was, "No, that's not necessary, but you can do the same for others, the same spirit that I did it to you." and I'm still stuck with that
That's fantastic.
obligation, to be open source and help inspire others to share. And guitar making in the last 50 years, steel string making around the world, the level of sophistication and quality has risen incredibly due to our cooperation with each other.
What do you think is the most important technology to come out in the last 50 years for guitars?
Well, I would say not technology, but philosophy. Instead of the guild system, which was they probably had real good reasons for it, that you couldn't do it commercially unless you were in the club. You couldn't make a violin, a guitar, or a violin shipping box, for that matter, unless you were in the guild. And they had strict rules about how you did it, and it just wasn't possible to do it independently. That's why Martin got kicked out of Marktkirchen in Germany, now old Eastern Germany, because he was making guitars instead of shipping boxes, I understand from their literature, right? So is that breakthrough where people were not only sharing, but not begrudgingly, excitedly. And this tied into there was a ongoing renaissance of, we could call it arts and crafts, but it was people making their own stuff that really, we could say started in the 60s. It really blossomed in the 60s. Part of it was a rebellion to overcome the myth of specialization. You could rebuild your own car engine. You could make your own shoes. You could make a guitar. You could make pottery, and just like an explosion of that went on. And so we had a lot of young people starting out in different trades. A lot of people celebrating their 50th anniversary right now from that. And so the guitar makers that I know, it seems like there used to be about 6 nationally, and now there's got to be 600,000 with it. But as we sought each other out and met each other, we were super eager to accelerate our progress by sharing info. Hey, guess what I figured out? Or where do you find that brown tape that I saw in a picture you were using for your binding? And with only a couple exceptions from people you'll never ever hear of, were they not sharing information like that. So it was it's a real renaissance, and really, really refreshing. Technology-wise, the biggest influences are the internet,
Right.
the ability to communicate and tell your story. When we started out, I don't want to overlook my original partners. So I started out on this on my own, and answer to another prayer here is I remember this thought process of I'd studied the violin stuff. I'd eaten up everything I could find, but I still couldn't really apply that. It's going to take practice. And I never considered myself a selfish person in that I want it for myself. More self-centered because I didn't know better. The universe, the reference point is me, and the universe goes around me. And so, I think we all have that to some degree, especially American boys. But I remember as my early teen years, kind of thinking that practice was for people that weren't as smart as me. Just show me, leave me alone, I'll get it. When I came to the realization, this came from playing baseball, by the way, as I was involved in a triple play, which is, relatively rare. And at the end I went, you know, we did that because we practiced. We did it over and over and over again. And I went, maybe that's what people have been telling me, right? Apply yourself, practice, and you'll get better at it. And I realized there's some things that I had become an expert at or was becoming an expert at because of repetition. And with that, I went, God, I could be 30 years old before I figure this out. And I went, if I worked with a team, we could accelerate our progress, we could make more, so it would allow us to experiment, and we could master things by putting enough time in to become really, really good at it. Doesn't mean you have to do fretwork or finish your whole life. It means you can do it till you get really good and then move to another aspect. So it's ironic as a guitar maker. What's that message from the universe? Was I stretching the truth? As a guitar maker individually, it was going to take a long time. But if I work with other people, we could accelerate that learning curve, and we truly could become expert at what we do. That's still how we do it here. Somebody gets the opportunity to become the best in the world at what they do, and they can move on to something else, and get it. So those, I had my shop at that time. I was in a house probably built around the turn of the last century. And it had a old carriage house in the back, and that's my shop. And I was doing repair to pay the rent because nobody knew me as a maker, and I knew people really well at Union Grove Music, including two of the guys that were salesmen and did repair there. And one, Will Davis, that since passed, came to my shop and said, "I'd like to work with you. I'd like to join you." And that sounded like answer to a prayer. It's like, great, that's a good. And then Bruce Ross, who's still local here, came really shortly thereafter. I can't remember if they'd spoken to each other previously, but I knew them both. And Bruce's appeal was the same. Let's throw in together. Let's make the best guitar in the world. And it sounded great. They thought it'd be a great idea if they just moved in my shop and started. And they had some family money they would invest, and I would dedicate my tools and get a $500 credit for teaching them how to make guitars. Right? And I thought, I could do that for a couple of years, learn what I needed to learn, and then move on. But the thing is, I wanted to keep my day job. I wanted to keep my tools, my own shop, and do this separately. So our deal was, as best of my recollection, that they both put up $2,000 each. I could take up to 2 years to pay my share, but again, the credit $500 for teaching them how to build. So I do $1,500 in 2 years, and off we went. Naive as heck, but doing something nobody had done before, which was not to be the next Martin, but to follow the principles of the violin tradition and build custom guitars for people as a team.
Would you say you had a foundation for a specific model of any acoustic guitar that you that you were very fond of, that you use as a starting point?
Yes.
And what model would that be?
Well, this is the folly of youth and the self-centered perspective. I thought we could make the guitar that everybody in the world would realize was the guitar they needed. So at that time, with rare exception, it had to be a dreadnought for a grown-up. Even an OM was considered maybe something a retired music teacher might play and have at home, but certainly not a real guitar for a guy. It was a dreadnought. However, what the music that was breaking then, we call maybe Windham Hill, Tacoma label, start with people like John Fahey, then going into Will Ackerman, which started Windham Hill, Daniel Hecht, Robbie Basho, and it was mostly open tuning fingerstyle. And the last thing you needed was a big, boomy, woofy, bass-heavy instrument, but that's what they're playing, right? So we decided the first guitar was going to be a Trojan horse. It was going to look totally familiar, the dreadnought like Martin made, but the dangerous stuff was on the inside. So it was built to be more evenly balanced in EQ, not so bass heavy. A wider neck for more facility, more like classical, and stylistically, of course, our own. We did a really wide saddle so that you could get proper intonation, and some nice innovative stuff that was it was too different. So first we're going uphill in the snow both ways to work, just by people making guitar was really unusual. Martin, Guild, Gibson made guitars, but people, nah, and there's no internet. So when we get an inquiry from, that wasn't a part of the pyramid scheme of you sell to a friend and then their friend comes in, that runs out pretty quick. So people, in response to Old Frets magazine, which was part of Guitar Player International, maybe twice a year we could afford to run an ad about that big. And we get an inquiry, and we'd send photographs and a handwritten letter to do that promotion. So I realized I skipped a lot of stuff there. In answering your question, the thing from me as just trying to figure out myself, doing repairs to pay the rent, and I was also doing making weaving supplies and looms, but making my own guitars and working with Bruce McGuire. We went in partners on the repair, but he was career-minded. He eventually became a probate judge, but he was an assessor, manager of a loan company. He had 4 kids. It wasn't the right thing for him.
Right.
Yeah. So I was doing the things I needed to pay my way and trying to learn guitars at the same time. The big break there in taking it seriously is when I had partners to be responsible for, right? And then it became a business with the obligations and so forth. And it was a great choice.
Yeah.
A great choice, been really, really, really rewarding. So anyway, I got into my gratitudes to the people that helped me get started and get going there. Like with anything, as you focus your interest, a whole new world opens up. Even prior to the internet, there was right about the same time, the Guild of American Luthiers started up in Tacoma, Washington, as power in numbers. A group of people that could share information, maybe get deals on or discounts on larger quantities of stuff to share. So things began to open up pretty quick. And as I said earlier, everybody was so hungry for information that the idea of having secrets was kind of creepy. And there was a couple of those people. Like it was just as we broke, I said, "You haven't heard of them." They didn't stick around very long, but for the most part, the idea of sharing an open source really took off.
I also think it shows a confidence in your competence. Because you say any people I know that are at the top of the game are usually more than willing to share what they've done, what they've learned, because they have the comfort knowing that, like, I can give you the same recipe, but there's a little bit of magic in there, and if you don't believe in magic, then what's the point, right?
I completely agree. And to your original question, which is what's the breakthrough here, I was saying the internet, but before that, the blossoming of the sharing of information. And then computer numerically controlled machinery, which we really were pioneers in because of our proximity to the tech right over the hill. We had people come over that were involved in that would see me sitting there with jeweler's tools doing inlay and going, "Haven't you heard?" You can do that automatically. So it took some thought, some value assessment. Were we selling out? Were we exchanging the tradition of handcraft and doing better by taking longer with a robot?
Well, I also remember you again in one of the tours that you gave. Tradition is good. You learn from the people who came before you, but there's also a longevity and injury issues with doing everything by hand. And I think people miss the point. I think there's a nostalgia or a sex appeal to, like, everything must be handmade. The imperfections.
Sure.
It's like you're already being built. These guitars are being built by somebody who's not perfect, right?
Yeah.
And so anything you can do to alleviate those sort of injuries is a good thing, and keeping keeping you able to produce for longer.
Yeah, you recall really well. What I came to is when I started out, we didn't really understand, as we do today, the nature of repetitive stress. People that did clerical work or tight work like that just disappeared, and you could be genetically predisposed either to avoid it or to get it quickly. But it's career-ending for people like that. So what I came to with this was real simple fork in the road. If it requires judgment and artistry, that's what makes us different. And that's where we shine. And those things have to be done by hand because otherwise you start limiting your ability to customize or whatever. But the things that were repetitive and the same each time, you're having people pay for your inefficiency. And you're risking the injury, which is most important. And if you're in a position where you're employing somebody to do something, it's just plain unethical to have them do something. It's profit off having them hurt themselves. So we, of course, back then, a $90,000 machine was total fantasy. We didn't gross that, in 5 years yet. So, but getting into that technology allowed us to be able to concentrate more on the things that were important to be done by hand and save ourselves. Inlay specifically. Like I cut out a few thousand of our logo by hand. And there's a time I would have defended that as better. But again, one of my most important lessons in life is to realize that the cost of pride was a good return on investment.
It comes before destruction, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And it's the, especially the American boy disease, pride, and that me thinking it was better because I did it was fallacious, and I was doing that at our customers' expense. So it's a beautiful thing. It's another tool, and as long as you realize where its place is, that's great. Back when we were talking about the difference between Luthier and manufacturing, it really comes down to that. To be efficient manufacturer, most of our consumer goods come from those machines. And the secret to efficient manufacturing is to make your components consistently, accurately dimensioned so they'll only fit one way in assembly systems, and somebody can watch a video and do the job, right? And the guitar you get from that is serviceable, you can think it sounds fine, and you can write a song and change the world. You get value. What we do is a little bit different, to go the extreme. So I really ran with your question there. I'll let you focus me here.
Well, how about...
This is fun.
Oh, yeah, no, this is fun. And was there maybe multiple points to where you got recognition from an artist or from a publication? What were some of the biggest shots in the arm for Santa Cruz Guitar?
Sure. You almost answered the question yourself. So we have my Will Davis, one of the original partners, had diabetes and had to have a pretty strict diet, a pretty strict regimen. And I think we paid ourselves $150 a month. It just didn't work for him. He went about a year and a half, and it was really taking a toll on him. And we had to buy him out. He had to have us buy him out. And I'm extremely grateful for his contribution. Really important. Today, part of the spirit of the company comes from him. So then it was Bruce and I for another, maybe 12 years. I think we worked together a total from the very beginning, about 13 years. The breakthroughs, I had worked with Darrell Anger, who's a violinist of international note, making mandolins. I had ridden my bike up to Mission Street to get some lunch, and one of the old Victorians that's the basement's the ground floor, and the windows stick up above ground. There's mandolin parts hanging in the window. And I knocked on the door for a few days until somebody answered, and I found out they're making mandolins. So I joined in with them and met Darrell. We became really good friends. And then Darrell went off to try out for a band in Mill Valley. It turned out to be the David Grisman Quintet.
Oh, cool.
And he got the job, and Tony Rice was the guitar player. So Darrell brought Tony to my house to meet me. By then, I'd transitioned into Santa Cruz Guitar Company, and we'd made a total of 4 guitars. And we met Tony Rice. And Tony had a famous old Martin herringbone from 1934 that just wasn't working in his the jazz phrasings and stuff he was doing in the quintet. It was just big, boomy, bassy. He did something with more mid-range and treble, a little more sophisticated scope. And he saw our guitar. He was, we convinced him. I convinced him that we were the ones and we should make his guitar. So Tony was really well known in the bluegrass realm. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what bluegrass was. But in making a guitar for him, we started to get calls from people that were can you make me a guitar just like you did for Tony? And being a brilliant marketer at the time, I said, no, that's not what we do. We're custom makers. We'll make the guitar you want. That we just happen to make one for Tony. And people, oh, well, thanks anyway. Finally realized, wait a minute. There's nothing wrong with making a bluegrass dreadnought. And we introduced the Tony Rice model that, some people only know us by that. That was a big deal.
And for the listeners at home, the Tony Rice model has a larger sound hole.
Yeah.
That I believe was a guitar that was modified, perhaps.
Yeah, Tony had 2 different stories on that, and there's so much folklore. It wasn't done as a tonal modification, In fact, Clarence White, that owned it before Tony, which gives it a lot of appeal too, was pretty rough on it because it was a pawn shop junker, and assembled of different parts and things like that. Today it's priceless.
Yeah.
But anyway, when he wanted us to make a guitar that looked like that, because he wanted the familiarity, but he wanted changes in the sound of it. I thought I better have an answer for why that sound hole is big. So the physics of it, I'll quote Herman Helmholtz, one of the seminal and world-changing acoustic physicists back in the early part of the last century, did this experimentation on little bottles with different apertures, and the conclusion was that the size of the aperture affects the fundamental frequency of the chamber. And the larger the aperture, the higher the frequency of the chamber. In a guitar, that means the larger the sound hole, the higher the frequency of the air chamber, and more accentuation and volume and the EQ of the treble and mid-range. So you have a boomy, bassy guitar, enlarging the sound hole will bring up mid-range and treble and compensate for that. And totally contrary to logic. You think you did the opposite. We do likewise. When we make a really small body guitar that would be more prone towards treble, we'll make the sound hole smaller to boost the bass.
Right.
Isn't that cool? So back to your question, how did we get off the ground? We were at that time we were doing a lot of repair. We worked 4 days a week on guitars, 1 day I work on repair, and we kind of did that independently to pay ourselves. And we officially we started in '76. About June of '76, but we were really making our first guitars in '77. By '83, the acoustic guitar was becoming extinct. MIDI, disco, our clientele were our age, getting out of college, maybe having kids, paying student loans, and there was a really bad recession. In '83, the world was ending. We did a school for a while, started a school, and then one day, I go to the mailbox and there's a little maroon envelope, and the return address says E. Clapton, London, England. They go, well, this could be Irvin Clapton, the plumber, we don't know. And sure enough, it's a handwritten letter from Eric Clapton asking for a guitar he'd seen in a literally ad about that big that showed the guitar and our phone number and address that we put in Fret's magazine. And it was a big deal to come up with that money. And he'd seen that, and he ordered a guitar, and he gave us a phone number to call Diana. And I think we spent the first major part of the morning trying to figure out how to make an international call. And Diana said, "Did you get Mr. Clapton's order?" So when we made a guitar for Eric Clapton, we went from being, for some people, the best guitar makers on the west side of Santa Cruz, are an enigma. I mean, seriously, people would play our guitar and go, "God, that's spectacular. That's the best guitar I've ever heard." But what would my friends think if I bought that instead of a Martin, right? So once Clapton had a guitar, we're okay. And
what model was that, by the way?
oh, it was the FTC, really still innovative. It's a conventional flat top guitar, but the back's carved like an arch top. So it has really focused projection, surprisingly so. So out in front of it, it's really loud, and behind it, not so much. We're able to focus the sound out. It's supposed to be a professional guitar for impressing the audience. So anyway, that was a huge breakthrough. I wouldn't have admitted it beforehand because I would have been prideful, but I gave credit to Tony Rice. But Eric Clapton, everybody's mother knew who Eric Clapton was. Yeah, so that was a very, very big breakthrough. I mentioned Fret's Magazine, but I didn't give credit. Fret's Magazine was a brainchild of Roger Siminoff, who published Pickin' Magazine in New York. Fret's was launched by a guitar player in Cupertino, and Roger came out from the East with his family to run Fret's Magazine. And Roger came over to visit us, and I think he probably gets credit for the one person that did the most to put us on the world stage, because here's a magazine dedicated to acoustic string music, for heaven's sakes, that we couldn't afford to advertise in, but we got great editorial reviews on guitars, involved in stories. They had a reader's poll, and actually for several years we got the best guitar maker in the world. Wow.
Fantastic.
So great. Those were the breaks that got us there. And working 7 days a week, 60 hours, and that too.
Right. Well, yeah. That's fantastic. I remember with Danville Music when I wanted to get Santa Cruz guitars in there.
Yeah.
We had been talking to you a little bit, but I walked up to you, and I had to convince. This is before I owned the shop, but I knew that I wanted to get that in. So I actually had to convince the previous.
I'm not tough enough for retail. I really admire you.
Well, I made a deal with the previous owner saying I'm going to take out a loan for Santa Cruz guitars because he didn't want any more lines, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And I borrowed money from my father-in-law, and I said, "Here's the deal."
You are tough.
No, I said we're gonna get Santa Cruz in here, and I told the previous owner, and you know what, I will pay for the guitars to have it, and I'll give you a percentage of that to have support, because I knew I wanted to buy this store, and I think this is the place we should have it, and the inspiration for that was, I remember my father played guitar. And we used to go to music stores, and there's a music store in Carmel. I forget what the name of it was.
Carmel Music.
Was it Carmel Music?
It was actually Bartlett's, and then Dexter Johnson, who worked there for a long time, took over, and it became Carmel Music.
Yeah. Well, I remember playing this acoustic guitar and just strumming a G chord on it, and I built a guitar for this like myself. The logo was on the 12th fret, but I didn't know what to make of it because I'd not heard of Santa Cruz guitars at the time. This is the early 2000s, and
wow, that's great.
And
that would have been Dexter.
And I strummed the guitar. And I'm like, what is this? I mean, it's amazing. And when I approached you, and this is a true story. I'm like, there are 2 times in my life I remember just having this amazing physical reaction to strumming a G chord. Yeah. One was at Cruz Guitar when I strummed a 1942 D28, and the other was strumming a Santa Cruz. So that's why I wanted to have that in there. So they really are fantastic guitars. When you say world class, I couldn't agree more.
Well, thank you. It's again, credit to the masters of hundreds of years ago that allowed us to have the foundation for what we do. The partners, the helpers, the mentors that got us here, and just the God-given grace of getting Tony Rice, Eric Clapton put on our doorstep, and then people like you that, in spite of all the credibility a brand like Martin had, you trusted your ears. You heard that, and you knew there was something different.
And there's
That's a great story.
Well, there's a reason why Martin became famous, though, right? I mean, when they were on the scene, there's nothing like them.
That's right.
You know, but like you said, standing on the shoulders of giants, you can improve things. I still think Martin's a fantastic guitar, and definitely will have its place in the in the history of guitar making.
Man, yeah.
For so many people, right?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd be a guitar maker if it hadn't been for the early influence of Martin on me. Yeah, they did a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about some of the dates coming up because the 50th anniversary is coming out, and I wanted to when I say coming out, it's happened. It's 2026. But
our 50th birthday is in September.
Okay.
Yeah, coming up September 2026. So September 22nd, 1976 was when we signed our partnership agreement at Santa Cruz Guitar Company. So that's what we commemorate.
Oh, cool. Well, you have a display that's going to be on in the Museum of Art and History in Santa Cruz.
Nice.
Which is, not only are you building guitars, but clearly you've made a huge impact on the community, and that's got to feel really good, right?
It is. There was a time in my life that would have seemed supremely ironic. Kind of like I mentioned Daryl Anger earlier. Daryl's on the world stage as a violinist. I remember when he got arrested on Pacific Garden Mall for busking, along with several other people, again, that are world-class acts that back then they were like human vermin, because of that. I'm so sorry. I had this on airplane mode.
Oh, no problem. So you can be a derelict as long as you have staying power. Then you become a legend?
I'm going to send a message here.
Sure.
Okay, let me get back on airplane mode. It is on airplane mode.
Huh.
Why? I have a really awkward relationship with iPhone.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I'm sorry for the interruption.
No problem. So the dates for the Museum of Art and History in Santa Cruz will be June 18th through October 4th. So
that's a long run.
And then, not only are you doing a run of the 50th anniversaries, which are going to have the greatest hits, the OM pre-war, the 1929, the H model, and the FF, you're going to be doing a special run of the FTC, which was what Eric Clapton was playing.
That's right.
And there's going to be 3 of those made, and they're all going to have a different Latin script on them. So, are they saying anything inspiration? Do they say YOLO or?
You know what? I turned that over to the makers.
Okay.
And I do this a lot. Even though if I have a concept for a new model, I want them to feel some ownership and engagement. So I don't know. I'm going to see what comes up out of that. The Latin was Casper's idea because it sounds classy.
That's really cool.
So, profound stuff like buy low, sell high, don't spit into the wind. Lefty, loosey, righty, tighty. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. I love the YOLO thing. Jack Black has this funny quote where he says, "YOLO is carpe diem for idiots." So they could just put carpe diem.
Jack Black called me on the phone, and through a friend down in Hollywood, got a D model.
Oh, wow.
And used it in Tenacious D, and we didn't really stay in close touch. But when he got the guitar, we gave him an artist price, which we'll do in exchange for promotion. And I said, and there's no contract, but if you ever falls out of favor with you, give us the option to buy it back or modify it for you. Because we didn't want to sell a guitar at an artist discount and then just have them sell it to somebody else. And some years later, he called up in the middle of some really awkward situation here. I don't know what we had. Upset customer, angry landlord, something really weird like that in the office. And he called up and he said, "You asked me to call you." He says, "I'm in a pinch. I really need the money, and I need to sell the guitar, and I wanted your permission." And I went, "You're all right. Go right ahead." And that was the end. That was the last of it.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I mean, and I've seen him play live, and they're hilarious. I love watching the Tenacious D.
You know, it's funny. He's a brilliant guy, and spectacular voice.
Yeah.
And player, and he evokes the memory of Jerry Reed, who, why in the world he had to be a clown, because he was just a crazy gifted guitar player. And of course, he made a living and he made himself famous. Who am I to say that's a bad thing? But it's funny. Roy Clark,
Yeah.
another guy. You know, Hee Haw. Now, I think Keith Richards said he was the best guitar player in the world. Anyway,
Excellent.
You asked the questions. I'm having too much fun.
No.
At the
also,
coffee table with you.
I'm really enjoying this, but I also want to make sure that we talk about some of the stuff that we're excited about. And the last thing I have notes on that I need to bring up here, and then I've done my homework,
Good.
is and I just got to see it. Apparently, we saw it for the first time together, the H13, and I'm gonna do some photographs and put that on the video so you can see how beautiful this thing is. So, and we're using all wood that's from around the Santa Cruz area,
Not just around the city limits. We did a Santa Cruz County guitar some years ago. Because we get up in the mountains and we have a pretty broad thing. But this is within the city limits. And they're not just, these are trees that grow in Santa Cruz. They're really viable tone woods, you know, that do that. But it's a homage to the city and what the city's allowed us and done for us, both business-wise and inspirationally,
great.
to make us who we are. And God, what a beauty!
It is.
Say so.
It is. It's got and like I said, we'll put this up on the video, but it's got like the boardwalk like up on the headstock.
Yeah, the peg head is a really stylistic, almost like noir vision of the boardwalk. It's more what's not there that speaks the loudest in it. Jimmy Wingert did that inlay. It's just beautiful.
And then I think you were telling me the Sinker Redwood is like, tell us about that, because you said it's over 300 years old or something.
Well, no, it's older than that. So this would predate European visitors, interlopers. It would have fallen from natural causes. It's not like a logging fall. From natural causes. The size of the tree, it probably was up to 1,500 years old as a living tree. It would have tumbled into, whether it was a forest fire, lightning, whatever. You want me to pause? Okay. It would have tumbled into the San Lorenzo River, which runs about 100 yards from where we sit right now, but at a much higher elevation. And that's strewn with these glacial, huge granite boulders as we tumble down. from a higher elevation down here, and we're speculating it would have taken about 300 years to make that trip because it's a huge tree. It's gonna every huge storm that would happen, it would get lodged and go a little ways, right? But it would have taken about 300 years to make it out to sea. And then come back in and wash up on the beach. And that was based on the decay degradation at the end grain that we could see on it. And redwood is impervious to bugs and decay. It's really, really sturdy. And a big log, the exterior can suffer all kinds of insult, but the interior stays intact. So not only that, but the resins polymerize. They don't need oxygen. It would have been in cold water for most of it, which would have been anaerobic and lack of decay. And it gets this beautiful color from mineral that comes in through the end grain and gave it its beautiful stripes. It's also got a real subtle flame, faint, large flame in it. Too much is dangerous because the integrity won't, strings would warp and distort it. But it's the coolest wood, a redwood I've ever seen, and I'm protective of it. I don't like to use it, but it went into this guitar. Yeah. So it's it washed up on the beach, and our friend Brian Campbell of Treebone Bonnie Doon Lumber got it for us.
And tell us about the surfer on the heel cap too.
Oh yeah, we go almost directly down to the ocean from here. There's Steamer Lane, which is a real world famous surf destination. They have contests there and so forth. And the city put up a statue, a beautiful statue. It's like this young Adonis and his jams, with the surfboard stood up behind him, and it's become kind of a city icon. And so it's a little engraving on the heel cap of that surfer, which is really, really great, really cool.
And you're going to give that gift to the city, huh? Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
Now, let me tell you about the sides and back. This is sycamore, which is unusual. But sycamore is beautiful. It grows all over the world, but this particular one is native to our area, and it's it has a pattern on it that looks like the background's kind of tan. The pattern is little tan splotches, and then offset behind it is a little kind of grayish black. And to me, it looks just like a leaf floating on a shallow pool, and you see the shadow on the bottom of it. It's really striking, really, really pretty. And where this came from is we had a real major earthquake in 1989 that required most of downtown to be rebuilt. And where this particular tree was found, they did an excavation down about 30 feet to do the foundation parking garage for this building. So there's a level they determined was about 150 years ago. This is like 25 years ago. That had these little disposable clay pipes from Dutch workmen, some bottles from apothecary, etc., where they could actually date the time that was. This tree was down towards the bottom of their dig, and we're thinking 3,000 to 5,000 years ago is when the San Lorenzo River that our redwood came from would have run right down that street, Pacific Avenue, our main commercial thoroughfare. and it's since moved over quite a bit. But that tree would have fallen in a higher elevation, gone down, and gotten stuck there and buried and buried and buried. They built a town over it. It's kind of like I was in Cologne, Germany, and 40 feet down there's this a Roman roadway. And what is it? Skin cells, dust, and paper clips that build it up over 2,000 years. But anyway, that was down almost 30 feet, and we didn't carbon date that. But that sycamore it could be the dawn of time, but we're speculating it's at least 3,000 to 5,000 years old.
Wow.
And again, preserved in an anaerobic environment. So that's the back and sides.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. All right. Well, we're gonna end the interview very shortly, but I always like to ask 2 more questions.
Sure.
Before we end. And thank you so much for your time.
A pleasure.
So we're going to give 3 lists. The first top 3 lists is what are your 3 characteristics that have allowed you to have a business and keep one going for 50 years? That's the first question.
Okay. Number 1, faith. And I don't proselytize, but I'll give anybody some really good advice. Don't try to do this alone. And I'm not talking business. I'm talking about this dangerous pursuit of life. I mean, I'll be 75 in June. The business is going to be 50 years old. And it's not a miracle. It's a series of miracles that are inconceivable. You know, the odds of achieving these milestones with it. I gave you hints all along the way here and what I was talking about. My realization that the cost of pride is not worth it is really the foundation of most sophisticated cultures, spiritual beliefs and religions. You edited at will here, but people have a lot of misconceptions about what we've been taught. The Garden of Eden talks about a time where we were guileless, we all got along, there was plenty, and we partook of the knowledge of good and evil. That's the ego. That's the self. Without that, everything's peachy. You know, we love each other as much as we care about ourselves, and life is good. But once we start looking at it from a personal perspective and comparison and start competing, it gets funky.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm never going to achieve the selfless perfection, that would be really desirable. But to live in pursuit of that makes life beautiful. Your happiness comes from making other people happy, and it's infectious, and it makes life good. So the whole pursuit of Santa Cruz Guitar Company is a vehicle for that. Yeah. Making the world a better place and allowing people to enjoy life to the fullest. The second part, I realize I'm stepping on.
No worries.
The second part is the support of my, dear wife of 53 years. I didn't say tolerance, support, because there's been some really difficult times, and she's sacrificed quality of life for the longer haul, the greater good, and I'm really, really grateful to her for doing that. And then all the aforementioned mentors and partners that helped me get here. Nobody, I said, don't try this alone. You don't get here alone. And I'm first to admit that I'm just the last man standing. That's what I represent. And what you described is your introduction to Santa Cruz, your support of us through your retail store, that allows us to pay the rent and pay each other and keep going till tomorrow.
Excellent.
So here's to another 50 years.
Right.
Clink.
And the very last question will be, if you could take 3 instruments to you into the afterlife, and it could be something as like small as a transistor radio to your favorite guitar or your instruments, or the piano that your mother played for you.
Yeah. Okay, my favorite instrument, it's almost a tie here, first and second, is the cello and the double reeds like oboe, English horn. These are like the closest sonic equivalent to the human voice. They really, really move me. And it's funny, I spent my whole life dedicated to the guitar, and the cello and the oboe really, really move me. And then, of course, the guitar. So, I got to respond to the transistor radio, can I?
Sure, absolutely.
Transistor radio seems like a silly little consumer geek-gaw, but that changed. It changed the world. Think of your business. My music store, which is of course independent, locally owned way back then, represented what most retail stores, music stores, were around the country. They sold records, band instruments, sheet music, radios, TVs. So as these technologies came out, they had more to do with a music store than they did the clothing store, so that's where they ended up, right? When the transistor radio came out, it showed up in the drugstore. And it changed everything, right? It didn't go into the music store, and that whole side of the consumer appeal went away, and the music store changed forever. And then the internet came. So anyway, transistor radio. And I had my first real introduction to music. I borrowed transistor radio with a earpiece under my covers, under my pillow at night, trying to get a station, way far away. Life's good.
Oh, that is cool. Well, once again, thank you so much for your time, Richard. Here's to 50 years, and here's to another 50, keeping the legacy going.
Man, thanks for what you do. I hope everything goes your way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Musicians, we are Danville Music, your local source for the best selection of high-quality musical instruments and accessories. Open 7 days a week right here at Danville Music, danvillemusic.com, your local music store.